guys, this is RoniK95 here, and today we're going to be doing a top 10 video once again. This time I'm going to be some ranking on here, especially on something that I haven't thought of doing one before, which I should have done until now. Today, on behalf of this, we're going to be doing my top 10 worst terrible cartoons on my top 10 I have here. Because there's a whole bunch of terrible cartoons out there. Necessarily Western cartoons in general. Because I'm talking about the shit that's infamous of how it's basically considered to be almost bad. Like the ones that keep still going on the air on Cartoon Network, as well as a couple of some of those Crunchyroll originals garbage as well, that are also part of the terrible cartoons as well, from what I understand, basically is how it's given in the fact of how I have here. So, without any further ado, which is right here, right now, this is my top 10 terrible cartoons list I have right here, that are considered to be the worst as well. Which I guess it's basically in the same way how Margot Robbie's a Hilary Duff wannabe, as well as in the same way how Kim Kardashian is considered a horrible celebrity, as well as Tom Green, who is also considered to be a horrible actor as well. So, let's do this. Number 10. Total Dramarama. Oh my god. This is the terrible cartoon out of all. Although I have never seen any of the Total Drama Island series, to be honest with you. But this is all new to this as well when it comes to having these terrible cartoons particularly as well. Come to think of it, Total Dramarama is basically how it's all its own mischievous antics, especially in the daycare as well. Especially the characters from Total Drama are in their younger days as well, especially in the daycare as well. And you have Chef Hatchet, who is basically who owns the preschool building in that show particularly. Because I know that basically it always takes place in a preschool instead of those competition in those camp ones, such as Camp Wawanakwa as well. Although I never seen the Total Drama series, to be honest. But Total Dramarama, in my opinion, this has got to be one of those terrible, mediocre shows as well. That's basically one of them as well. Okay, number 9. Sanjay and Craig. Oh my god, where do I begin with some terrible cartoons? How I can know about this? Sanjay and Craig is basically one of the worst cartoons ever. Came out in the 2010s period as well. Yeah, it's one of those horrible shows that are always been on Nickelodeon as well. I mean, what is it with terrible cartoons that are on Nickelodeon beside Cartoon Network? Well, that's one of them, because Sanjay and Craig is very awful, in my opinion. Yeah, because this show is basically how it's considered to be very mediocre also. Because I don't know why this only had but even though the show was ended in 2016 on July 29th, I guess. Well, that was relief. I mean, this show follows their comedic adventures in the town of Lundgren, involving their parents named Vijay and Darlene. Sanjay wanted to help Craig, who is basically has the ability to talk a secret while avoiding the snake-eating neighbor named Mr. Nudeman. Wow, this show is more worse. This is none of it like the other. Number 8, Thundercats Roar. Oh my fucking god. Another terrible cartoon from Cartoon Network. This is basically where to begin with. This cartoon ruins the original Thundercats TV series. I mean, this is basically of how they wanted to fuck up a cartoon, what Cartoon Network has been doing, like when they wanted to cash in on making these types of terrible cartoons as well. Well, quite frankly, though, Thundercats Roar, the animation, it looks like it's made at CalArts as well. Because I don't know why would they do this. I mean, why am I talking about it? Well, it's very simple. Thundercats Roar is basically how mediocre cartoons as well. I mean, this is how it's becoming more worse of how they fuck the cartoons up, especially of how they made this types of show as well. In its own little certain way of how they do this as well. Why would they do this as well? Like, I don't know how this got. Well, thank God the show has been ended since December 5th, 2020. Well, that was a relief after 52 episodes. Wow. No wonder why this is short-lived. This is like one of those short-lived cartoons as well. But although Thundercats Roar is basically it ruined the original Thundercats, because Thundercats has been around since 1985. I mean, at least the original one from the 80s is better than the reboot Thundercats Roar, which is basically looks a lot more like very mediocre cartoons from the 2020s as well. Come to think of it, it's more worse as I thought. Number 7, The Brothers Grunt. This one is one of those raunchy humor shows as well, because it's created by Danny Antonucci, who is basically how it's very considered of who's the creator of Ed, Edd n Eddy. The Brothers Grunt was aired on MTV. It involves those 5 humanoids, Frank, Tony, Bing, Dean, and Sammy, who are searching for their brother named Perry, of their antics as well. I don't know why. This show, the music in this was composed by Patrick Caird, or whatever you want to pronounce Patrick's last name, because he's the composer for the music for Ed, Edd n Eddy as well. Although I have seen Ed, Edd n Eddy, to be honest with you, though. The Brothers Grunt on there, it was very disgusting and gross as well. Especially of how it's considered, ended up getting those negative receptions as well. Come to think of it. It's like, where do they begin with as how they made the Brothers Grunt, especially what AKA Cartoon has a lot to do. So that's that. Number 6, Mr. Pickles. Another worst terrible cartoon that was on Adult Swim as well. I mean, it makes Metalocalypse look like a dollar store version as well. Yeah, come to think of it, Mr. Pickles is basically how this show revolves around Tommy, who is part of the Goodwin family, with their family's border collie dog, who is demonic, named Mr. Pickles. I mean, it is a own little antics of how this dog is like a devil dog as well, of how it kills and mutilates countless amounts of victims, of how it resurrects his victims from his underground lair, of how Mr. Pickles' evil, murderous rampage of those who threaten the boy who get in his way or annoy the dog as well. Yeah, Mr. Pickles is basically terrible, though. I mean, I don't know why they made this type of show as well, because this is the thing of how they made this type of cartoon, like how this is one of those worst, terrible Western cartoon from Adult Swim. I don't know why they air this as well, because, well, to be fair, I don't know why, though, is that Mr. Pickles has been always on television as well. Yeah, just to begin with as well. Well, to be fair, though, it was one of the worst ever made as well. Despite that, there's a lot of terrible cartoons as well. Number 5, Breadwinners. Speaking of which, Breadwinners is another terrible cartoon as well. Well, guess what? Breadwinners is another terrible Nickelodeon cartoon. Like, this only has been, like, I believe, like, 40 episodes, only 2 seasons only. I mean, the series, basically, how it's involved around these two fightless ducks, Sway Sway and Boodoos, who are the best friends who fly around these water-based planet called Pangea in a rocket-powered van delivering bread to the people. Which he doesn't realize of how the best judgment if he's skilled at the van as well. Unlike most cartoons that are terrible, this is one of them as well, because Breadwinners is basically more terrible than the other cartoons that I mentioned before as well, how I can begin with as well. Number 4, Fanboy and Chum Chum. Another terrible cartoon that is on Nickelodeon originally. Because it was very horrible what Fanboy and Chum Chum... The show basically revolves around those two slow-witted superheroes attempt to rid their own town of Galaxy Hills of evil. They are annoying everyone around them, particularly. Especially of how there's unfunny humor on Fanboy and Chum Chum as well. Because I don't know why Nickelodeon airs this type of garbage like this as well. Because I wanted to realize of how this show is. How it's considered to be part of terrible cartoons as well. From what I understand why. It's gotten more worse as I thought. Number 3, Teen Titans Go. Oh my god. Here we go. Another cartoon that is terrible on Cartoon Network as well. Just, where do I begin with? Teen Titans Go is basically one of those terrible cartoons that I cannot even stand as well. I mean, it's always been going on, and it's always been airing on Cartoon Network all the time as well. Despite, though, I have already did my rant on Teen Titans Go, basically. This has to be the biggest of all terrible cartoons as well, particularly of how I can understand why do they do this as well. Why would they have more comedic and more unfunny humor as well? Why am I mentioning it? I hope the show would be canceled as well. Yeah, because every episode has been ripping off movies on here, like, of how, like, I don't know why there's this episode from Teen Titans Go ripped off Adam Sandler's movie, Punch Drunk Love. I don't know why did Teen Titans Go do that. Well, I just wanted to know, like, what the hell is going through Cartoon Network of how they air this garbage show. Yeah, because that's why I hate Teen Titans Go as well. I wish they would have stopped airing it. But even if they did, then the show would have been canceled as well. Because that's how I was expecting as well. Yeah, because how I realized of how will the show end, especially for this garbage like Teen Titans Go particularly as well. Well, basically though is that why would they still make this show? Like, they put these Teen Titans Go episode marathons on Cartoon Network. How do they do this to begin with as well? I mean, the animation in Teen Titans Go, it looks very awful, and it's very bland, and it looks like it's made at a typical type of California University film school, basically, of how it looks. Despite though it's made by Warner Brothers Animation, as though this has got to be one of the worst cartoons ever made as well, because it's the biggest of all terrible cartoons as how they do this particularly, just to begin with as well. So that's the reason why I hope this show, it needs to be canceled forever. Number 2, Onyx Equinox. Even though I've already did my rant about Onyx Equinox, I think this has got to be one of those, like, mediocre terrible cartoons that were on Crunchyroll, that are part of Crunchyroll Originals as well. Yeah, the series basically, how it evolves around basically the god from the underworld, the Mexican god of the underworld, who is basically begins stealing blood sacrifice from other gods, who is in a Zapotic city, to end those. Quetzalcoatl wanted to close the gates to the underworld, as I've said, of how it's being made of obsidian, of how it's toxic against the gods. Yeah, Onyx Equinox, in my opinion, it has to be one of those terrible cartoons. As a matter of fact, about Onyx Equinox is that it was basically one of those terrible cartoons ever made that is part of Crunchyroll Originals. Like, here we go, and I could not believe that Sentai Filmworks released Onyx Equinox on Blu-ray under a complete collection. And no, I am not going to be buying that piece of trash Blu-ray of Onyx Equinox Complete Series on Blu-ray. I am not going to be buying that piece of trash, in my opinion, because I would just stick with getting my hands on all these anime titles from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, especially ones from, like, Discotheque Media, Animego, and as well as other classic anime I know in general of its kind. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about as well. Because I had to realize that Onyx Equinox is one of those terrible cartoons that are always on Crunchyroll Originals, which is in the same way how it's the equivalent to these direct-to-video Disney films as well. And number 1, High Guardian Spice. Here we go. Even though I've already did a rant on High Guardian Spice in the past as well, this has got to be one of those very bad shows that are always on Crunchyroll. That is another one that is also a part of Crunchyroll Originals as well, from what I understand why, basically. And as a matter of fact, though, the animation, it looks like something like the Netflix reboot of She-Ra and the Princess of Power, DreamWorks reboot animation one. That's what it looks like, a certain animation style as well. I mean, the show High Guardian Spice revolves around these 4 girls who are attending High Guardian Academy, of how they wanted to realize of how they protect their friends from these enemies, as well as some counters of threats happening around how the show evolves as well. Quite frankly, though, High Guardian Spice is got to be one of those terrible cartoons ever made on Crunchyroll. And yeah, this has got to be one of those terrible cartoons, because High Guardian Spice is worse as the other cartoons that are terrible of its own ways, is taking on certain kinds of manner as well when it comes to talking about these terrible cartoons. Yep, and you hear me right, because there is a lot of terrible cartoons to figuring out, especially the ones of today, like from the 2010s and the 2020s as well, because no wonder how there's terrible cartoons as well. So that's all I covered were top 10s on these, and as well, because there's a lot of terrible cartoons to deal with just to begin with as well. As well, there's my honorable mentions on terrible cartoons, like Planet Sheen, which is another terrible cartoon in my opinion as well, and also The Mighty Bee as well. And what's that other terrible cartoon as well? Yeah, there is a lot of terrible... Yeah, which you get the picture. Ironically, though, when it comes to having some terrible cartoons on your honorable mention as well. And also that horrible Powerpuff Girls reboot from 2016 as part of the honorable mentions as well. Which I think that's also another terrible cartoon that was always on Cartoon Network, always at the time as well. Yeah, because I have been realizing about how I was explaining about how I've been dealing with terrible cartoons that were on Cartoon Network at the time as well. And also The Owl House, which is another terrible cartoon that was on Disney Channel as well. Although I have never watched cable, to be honest with you, because we're in a world of streaming, on streaming services one there. I mean, who even watches cable these days as well? At least, especially when we have streaming services like Netflix and Tubi, etc. as well. Although I don't have cable, to be honest with you, though, is that I have been picking some cartoons that are considered to be the most terrible, and also including the ones that are part of these honorable mentions as well, from what I understand basically of how the thing is, how to consider the fact of how I wanted to do this as well. Yeah, so enjoy this, whatever that's wanted to know. Because I had to get all these out of my chest when it comes to how I was ranking some terrible Western cartoons as well, because there's a lot of them out there, and also from what I understand why as well. So that's going to be it for my top 10 worst cartoons list on here for today's video, for today, you guys. Thank you for watching, but before we go, here's what I'm going to say for this video as well. Well, this is the first time I haven't thought of doing a top 10 worst cartoons on here, because I have mentioned about a couple of these terrible cartoons that are on Crunchyroll originals, which I mentioned, like I think I've already mentioned it earlier, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Onyx Equinox and High Guardian Spice, which are these 2 terrible cartoons that are on Crunchyroll originals as well, because I wonder how they did this as well, because these are the only two terrible cartoons I can think of on Crunchyroll originals as well. Although I was never a huge fan of Crunchyroll originals, but I was more viewing with just your average Japanese anime series as well. Because I watch some seasonal animes as well as classic ones on there. But I watch mostly our movies just to keep my mind away from terrible cartoons as well. Mind you, because no wonder why, though, that Crunchyroll Originals has been getting a lot of criticism. I guess in the same way how Crunchyroll Originals is all becoming another direct-to-video Disney films as well. Hope subscribe for content. My anime plan link in the description down below. You can share this video on your Twitter, Facebook if you have Twitter and Facebook account, and all social media. Smack the like button if you enjoy this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below on this video if you like also as well. And also be sure to smack the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified also for more latest updates. Click on the subscribe button. Feel free to join my channel if you're new to my channel as well. And also be sure to if you want to check out my Anime Planet, the link will be in the description down below, because I have a huge backlog of anime and manga on my Anime Planet account. And that's all I have what I got for today, because, wow, this is the first time I wanted to do a top 10 video where I'm discussing about some terrible cartoons as well. Despite, though, that, because I have some different types of standards to deal with, particularly as well. Even though I don't really got cable, to be honest with you, though, as well. This is RuRoniK95 saying thank you for watching my video. I'm glad you liked it. Hope you enjoy it. Hope to see you soon for the next video. Hope you have a great day. This is RuRoniK95 signing off. Thank you for watching my video, and I will see you soon for more videos.